Champions Network, hear our song. Stronger together where we belong. Champions Network. Champions Network. Champions Network. Champions Network. Stories of hope, dreams set free. Lighting the world on CNTV. Champions Network.
Welcome to Champions Network TV, and today is a special day. We are going to discuss an important topic in our nation. So let me, for those who are watching us live on Champions Network TV, Mbire TV, or NGWG Global TV, we kindly request you to like, share, and subscribe to those channels so that you are notified when we come live. So, and our topic today is Amendment Bill number 3. What are the political implications? Good evening and good afternoon, good morning, wherever you might be joining us from. Welcome to Champion Network TV, broadcasting across Mbire TV, NDWG, Global TV, and to all our global audience. Tonight, Zimbabwe finds itself at what many are calling a constitutional crossroads. You don't know what you might call it. The question dominating public discourse is simple yet profound. Is Amendment Bill number 3 a reform or a consolidation of power? Across the country, one key issue continues to trend. Who controls Zimbabwe's future? Are it the people or political institutions? And tonight, discussion will unpack the political implication of Amendment Bill number 3 in Zimbabwe, examining whether it is strengthening governance, concentrates power within executive. With insights from Dr. Zembe and Comrade Whitehead, we will explore the bill's impact on constitutional democracy and separation of power, what it signals about political tolerance, dissent, and governance culture, and what it ultimately means to the future of ordinary Zimbabweans. At its core, this conversation is about power, accountability, and the direction of Zimbabwe's democracy. So welcome, Dr. Zembe, and I think Comrade Whitehead has just dropped him. I think his network might be a challenge to him. So welcome, Dr. Zembe.
Thank you. Greetings once more, Chairman Wisha. And I'd also want to extend the greetings to my panelist, Whitehead, and also the viewers and listeners of Champions Network TV in collaboration with NDWG Global Television and Mbire TV.
Thank you very much. Let me just welcome Changoroma, who is just watching us on YouTube. You are welcome. And if you have got any comments, questions, you are welcome to put them in the chat box. At some point, we'll give people an opportunity to join us in the studio. So, let's start our first segment, Dr. Zembe, as we say, constitutional crisis or crossroads. To you, Dr. Zembe, what exactly is Amendment Bill number 3, and why is it generating such intense national debate? I know you have explained it before, but we always have new viewers every day. So can can you take us through what, in a nutshell, Amendment Bill number 3?
Yes, once more, the decomposition of this bill is it is a proposed law which impacts on the supreme law of the country and also subsidiary laws. And the decomposition is as follows. The first aspect is the appointment of the president. Since 1990, Zimbabweans have been appointing their president through direct elections, where the country was one electoral constituency. So the president has been having a direct vote, in other words, direct power to constitute a presidential system of government in Zimbabwe. Now, this bill seeks to change that appointment of the president. It seeks to cause the president to be appointed by the members of parliament of both the National Assembly and the Senate. It is proposed that the president should be elected by the members of parliament instead of being directly elected by the voters, the citizens. That is one major proposal contained in this Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026. The other aspects relate to the extension of the tenure of the presidential office, the parliamentary office, and the local government office, to extend these offices from the current 5 years to 7 years. That is to say, with effect from 2023 to 2030. Which has a cumulative effect of increasing the current tenure of office from 2028, when it was supposed to end, to 2030, an increase by 2 years, which means the president will have had an extension for 2 years, the members of parliament an extension for 2 years, and the councillors also extension for 2 years. So to summarize this change, these public officials are conspiring to create jobs for themselves without going back to the people. So the effect is to ban elections. And why do I say ban elections? There is no proposal in the bill of when the government, ZANU-PF government, would want people to now have elections. In terms of the bill, there's nothing that states that beyond 2030, what would happen? Because elections would have been banned from 2028 to 2030, and what would happen thereafter? So it's an abolition of elections. The other aspect relates to traditional leaders. This bill proposes to allow traditional leaders to be political commissars of political parties. The existing constitutional right prohibits traditional leaders from holding active political party membership. They would, however, as at this stage, traditional leaders would simply listen And when it comes to elections, they would go into the voting process, vote for their candidates, but they are prohibited from actively being members of political parties. But this bill proposes to change that. This bill also proposes to dissolve the Gender Commission, that is to transfer all the work of the Gender Commission to the Human Rights Commission. So that is the other aspect. The other aspect relates to the role of the security sector or defense forces. The existing constitutional write-up states that the defense forces have a role to defend the Constitution. And this proposed bill proposes to dilute that by saying the defense forces should act in terms of the Constitution, in accordance with the Constitution. So they are removing to defend the Constitution, substituting it with acting in accordance with the Constitution. The other aspect relates to the appointment of additional 10 senators by the president, who himself will have been elected by the parliament, that is the National Assembly and the Senate. And so the president is proposed to be having another right to appoint 10 additional senators in the Senate. So this law seeks to, like as they say, scratch my back and I scratch yours. Between public officials, the president and the senator and the members of parliament, they are dealing with the public authority to govern without going back to the people, because this is a proposal and they want parliament to pass the bill into law without the role of the people in deciding. The next area of change that is proposed is appointment of judges without public interviews. Currently, judges were appointed through holding of public interviews where the members of the public would attend and witness the interviewing process. The other aspect relates to the transfer of the voters' roll from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to the Registrar General, who is a civil servant, under the supervision of the Minister of Home Affairs. This is what entails really the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026. So in a nutshell, this is the decomposition of what it proposes to achieve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Before I go to Comrade Whitehead, I just need you to answer a follow-up question in a very short, maybe 30 seconds. Of all the amendments, which one of them concerns you much?
Yes, it is the appointment of the president. To me, it sounds like the ZANU-PF presidential candidates have been losing the confidence of the electors for a long time, from the time when Robert Mugabe was president to the time when Emerson Mnangagwa became president. These members, these candidates, presidential candidates, have been losing elections. As a result, they've been rigging those elections to gain entry into public office. And beyond that, they have also been failing to govern the country progressively to cause development to take place in Zimbabwe. So because of that failure, they attracted the lack of confidence from the electors. That is why they have been voted out by the voters in direct elections. So this bill is trying to sort of hide those losses in parliamentary elections. They are sort of having a plot, the ZANU-PF political party. Since they have lost presidential elections directly, they want to stay in power by hiding behind parliamentary elections, so that they think they will win majority members of parliament, the seats in parliament, which will, those majority seats will then appoint a president. So they think that they will remain in offices beyond the enactment of this proposed bill. So finally, I should say that it is very clear that the presidential governments of Robert Gabriel Mugabe and Emerson Damzo Mnangagwa have been produced dictatorship in the country, not democracy in the country, in the manner that they governed. And now they are in the process of transforming the presidential government dictatorship into the parliamentary government dictatorship by simply getting into a deal between Emerson Damzo Mnangagwa now and the existing members of parliament, because they are dealing with the people's power here and with the kind of dictatorial authority they've exhibited for the past 46 years. They want now to plot a different version of parliamentary dictatorship. That's my take on this one, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mazembe. This question was going to be directed to Comrade Whitehead, but I think he's having some challenges with his network. But in any way, I will ask it. If those who are on the platform, if you are a war veteran or you are a war collaborators, or you have got a very good understanding of the ethos of why we went into liberation war, you can join in and to pass some of these questions to you. But Dr. Zembe, I know you read history, and you may respond to this question from a historical perspective. This was supposed to be directed to Comrade Whitehead, who is a liberation war hero. And then from a liberation and historical perspective, does this moment reflect the Zimbabwe our comrades, our mothers and fathers had in their mind when they went to war?
My view is that I don't think the aspirations of Zimbabweans have been fulfilled this far by the government of ZANU-PF since 1980 to date. What Zimbabweans expected was to be completely independent, which means to be completely free to self-govern themselves, Zimbabweans, in complete freedom and conditions of peace. It is undeniable that it is undeniable that Zimbabweans had been persecuted. Zimbabweans had been denied the right to take part in appointing government through elections in Rhodesia, and that the colonial racist regimes imposed themselves. They imposed their constitution, they imposed their rules, they imposed their government, which was racist. And the racial governments never really wanted the majority black Africans to vote in determining a government. And also, when you look at the distribution of national wealth, Africans were getting a very raw deal based on skin color. The conditions of service at work, the salary packages were all, inhuman in certain circumstances. So it was because of this racist, oppressive system that Zimbabweans embarked on a struggle, which began as a struggle yamatare, the right just to be heard. And the colonial government resisted that and continued to ill-treat Zimbabweans, using even public institutionalized violence through agents of state, such that at some point then Zimbabweans, through their political leaderships, decided to embark on an armed liberation struggle as well, because they have been oppressed using guns and other arms of war. So Zimbabweans also now resorted to using guns in the armed liberation struggle. And this struggle was persecuted for 14 years. And that culminated in the Lancaster House Agreement sort of talks, Lancaster House Conference. But then ever since, Zimbabweans have been struggling to have complete independence, both political and economic independence. And as you know, you wouldn't be independent if you have no control of your productive systems, of your resources that would give you a good standard of living. And ever since now, since 1980, ZANU-PF government has been plundering national wealth to the extent that the people have become impoverished. The people have now been disempowered, even losing the wealth that they had gathered in Rhodesia. And under the ZANU-PF regime, people have become even worse. They've become paupers. Others, this is why others fled to the diaspora in search of basic survival. So the aspirations that Zimbabweans had were never fulfilled, including those who participated in the armed liberation struggle. We are having sad stories right now where war veterans are living in destitution. They can't have medicine, basic medicines to cure themselves. They can't have a reasonable standard of living. They are wallowing in poverty, in destitution, economic destitution, and they are suffering as well, like the majority citizens of this country. So, to really answer your question, I must state that we hear the cries of ordinary citizens in the country. We hear the cries of ordinary war veterans who have survived this far, that they are living in squalor. They are not able to access basic medical services. So they have come face to face with death, suffering, and death. When you look at the institutions of health in this country, they've become death chambers. Instead of saving life, we are seeing a terrible situation. So, back to you, Chairman Mija.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zembe. And for those watching us live on either on Champion Network TV or on Bire TV, there's a link in the chat box. If you can see it, you can join. You can join Dr. Zembe here. We have lost Comrade Whitehead. I'm sure his network is a bit a challenge for him. Hopefully he will join us at some point. But for those who have got some war memories, the reasons why we went to war, it will be helpful if you join us and you can give us the perspective from a war hero perspective in terms of saying if this bill number 3 making us realize the things that we went to war for, or is it taking us back in history? Just as a follow-up question, Dr. Zembe, to that question, are we seeing a continuation or a departure from the ideals of independence?
We are seeing a reversal of the progressive thinking and action on the ground towards the ideal objectives of the liberation struggle. Those who took up arms had a political theory that they taught the citizens in the villages at the Pungwes. That was the political theory. For example, relating to the governance system in the country. And senior combatants, senior liberators during the struggle who carried guns, who became even gray-haired, taught political lessons to citizens to understand the reason for the armed liberation struggle. They all pointed out that at the end of the liberation struggle, there should be a civilian government appointed by the citizens of this country through elections that recognized one citizen, one vote. A citizen of the rightful mature age who would have the right to make a decision through a secret ballot together with other citizens. You see, this was political theory that the war veterans disseminated. And that because the colonial regimes were intransigent, to that value, to democratic governance based on elections by the majority, deciding to institute a legitimate government peacefully. The liberators would always say the gun is there in support of the democratic struggle to establish a democracy based on one person, one vote. And so you find now bill number 3, this one, seeks to ban elections, the 2028 elections, and beyond. Like I indicated in my opening remarks when you asked me to decompose this bill number 3 package, I indicated to you that this bill seeks to ban the planned 2028 elections. And that banning it's open-ended. We don't know as a country that should this bill be forced down the throats of citizens of this country by the ZANU-PF regime, when will the regime allow Zimbabweans to vote, to participate in an electoral process to appoint a government? So it's you ask the question. We are actually backtracking at this juncture. We are not advancing to create greater democracy, greater freedom, greater economic opportunities for our people. We are sliding back into denial of a fundamental principle when it comes to civilian rule, that elections occupy a central philosophy of appointment of public leaders, that is to say, appointment of a government. And this is really very, very dangerous to say that what this nation went to war for, and a lot of lives were lost, and a lot of resources were lost, and a lot of relations were lost in pursuit of the right to vote by a citizen in appointing a government. This is a tragedy. And this is why some of us have said this is a dangerous experiment with the lives of the citizens of this country. It's not going to work. This proposed constitutional amendment bill, it's not going to be operational. Let us suppose that they succeed to dictate. How are they going to operate? You know, midstream, Mnangagwa having bribed members of parliament, these members of parliament having allowed themselves to be bribed, who do now appoint a president right now, the president who has enormous powers in this country at this juncture, will remain with those powers after having been appointed by the members of his parliament. And how is he going to be answerable to this nation? Through which avenue? How are citizens going to complain? How are citizens going to critique or criticize this government for it to change, for it to serve the people? Because there will be a closed type of government of dictators. Because if this bill goes through, then it means they will not have come to the or of support or of enrichment of ideas, So they will be running a closed shop type of dictatorship. And national life here will suffer. The people will suffer. And the people will have to engage in some form of liberation struggle, which would also be characterized by violent upheavals in order to remove a violent dictatorship that will have created itself without the people's power, without the people's involvement. And honestly, like I've indicated, this would be a dangerous experiment if the Mnangagwa government is to be allowed to put into place this suicidal bill. And honestly, my view is that I hope the whole system is going to be stopped by citizens. And like I've indicated, in many ways, it's a dangerous development taking place in our country. And I know that Zimbabweans have greater wisdom than the elite which is proposing this change. And my hope is that Zimbabweans are going to overthrow this dictatorial motion peacefully. Zimbabweans are going to overthrow this peacefully because those members of parliament now should take note that they should never abandon the people and be abused to act against the interests of Zimbabweans. So it is the members of parliament who now have the key not to allow the passage of this dangerous piece of legislation. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Zembe. We are going into the next your next question, which is about the implication to the political landscape of this this bill. Or the question is it a reform or is it a power consolidation? So, Dr. Zembe, from your perspective, is this bill shifting power towards the executive or is it giving power to the people?
No, this bill seeks to concentrate the power to the executive and taking it even away from the people. This bill, if it is allowed through, will not care about the people's feelings. How will this government, the president and the parliament, be answerable to the people? Clearly, all doors will be shut because the members of parliament and the president will have hijacked the people's power and to declare themselves as the supreme authority of Zimbabweans in terms of political power, because they will have run away from elections and they will have been engaged in a deal between the president and the members of parliament. Yet they continue to have the powers as they are fashioned now. And so it's a concentration of power in the parliament itself, because like I've indicated, dictatorship will have left the presidential seat into the parliamentary seat now, because we will be having a parliamentary dictatorship. And that parliament would not be elected by the people. It will not be having representatives of the people, because it's self-appointed members of parliament. This bill is what it is introducing. Self-appointed members of parliament, self-appointed president, with the powers that are there right now, allegedly from the people. So is the people being robbed of their power by this deal? I should also turn my attention to the other implication, political implication, that this bill would want to trigger in the country. You know, traditional rulership is ancestral. It is passed from one generation of rulers as chiefs to another, culturally. And this kind of republican power now, where you talk of a constitutional republic, is also another form of authority and power. And now this bill seeks to baptize traditional leaders into active political party members. And this kind of combination of republican power concept represented by a constitutional framework and traditional power concept really is colliding here, to the extent that more chaos, more anarchy, more disorganization will exist in our communities. Because when a chief is allowed to actively become a member of a political party, and let's say a subject of the chief is involved in a conflict which requires the arbitration, traditional arbitration of the chief, how is the resolution going to be done? You know, if a chief, let's say, belongs to party A and a subject to party B, how can that chief now preside over the conflict resolution process as is currently understood pamatare, namadzishe, namasabuku? ZANU-PF is plotting another, like I've indicated, a type of rigging mechanism, so that now that parliament becomes the citadel of dictatorship. They, ZANU-PF people, are plotting to recruit chiefs as political commissars of ZANU-PF, so that they would frog march their subjects into voting for ZANU-PF candidates in an election whenever the ZANU-PF government will have allowed the people to vote. So you can see that this kind of transitioning presidential governmental dictatorship into parliamentary governmental dictatorship, when they now use in the chiefs in the rural areas to frog march electors, or to allow a rigging process to take place, new type of rigging which will actually be open and legitimized by their law. This one, if it is allowed to pass, the ZANU-PF people will want to extend their stay in power by corrupting the chiefs. I must again say another aspect or implication here is that we know that ZANU-PF political party currently is in turmoil relating to succession aspect. Right now, the leadership of ZANU-PF itself is engaged in some kind of a fight, and one faction has actually taken the matter to the national arena. This is why they proposed this national legislation. They are in the process of trying to avoid the other faction from ZANU-PF in terms of succession struggles at party level. And now they are getting into the state structure of governance. So there are many things going terribly unwell with this kind of action, which is based on simply trying to resist leaving public office, because they have stolen a lot of public resources, and they are trying to protect themselves and to prolong their stay in public office by betraying the people. They think they have power to conquer the people by proposing all this. Yet everything is happening in the full view of the citizens of this country. And this is why I've said very often that Zimbabweans have greater wisdom, much more greater wisdom than the small elite which occupies public office now, which is now trying to play games with the people's lives, with the people's power. They are now in a web of confusion, in a web of frustrated behavior. Sociologically, there's a term there that when people do something that is irrational, something that is illogical, something that does not make sense, something that is unimplementable, then you know that these are just frustrated behaviors and the highest level of desperation. So the ZANU-PF political party is in turmoil. It failed this nation for 46 years, and now they are trying to get some kind of survival where they think they can cheat this nation into some kind of passing some kind of laws that cannot even save the people themselves. So I think I've done justice to the question you have asked about the political implications of the CAB 3 Amendment number 3 Bill of 2026. It's causing chaos, anarchy, disruption of order, and completely order in all sense. Political order, economic order, financial order, social order, all those orders are being disrupted, including these all issues about the position of the civil servants as workers of the crown or of the state. It's pathetic. Back to you, Chairman. Misha.
Thank you, Dr. Zembe. Earlier on, we had lost Comrade Whitehead, and he's back in the house. And I think you touched a little bit about the question which was directed to Comrade Whitehead. For our viewers, some of you are familiar with Comrade Whitehead. Comrade Whitehead is a liberation war hero in his own right, and he has worked quite extensively in our as a public official in our government. And so I've got just maybe might add a few things to the question. question which was supposed to be directed to him, over above of what Dr. Zembe had responded to the question. Comrade Whitehead, from a liberation and historical perspective, does this amendment bill or this moment reflect the Zimbabwe you and other people fought for? And I know you went when you were still young, when you were in your tender age. Can we safely say this amendment seeks to fulfill the aspiration of the people who went to war? Over to you, Comrade Whitehead.
Good evening, moderator. Good evening, Dr. Zembe. How are you? Sorry, my other gadget has a problem with network, particularly this time. I think there's too much congestion here. Right, to your answer. Does this amendment bill number 3 address or intends to address the ethos and objectives of the liberation struggle? The answer is no. Simple. Just from the palm of my hand, the answer is no. Because one, since independence, the objectives of the liberation struggle has never been fulfilled or never even been attempted to adhere to them. Absolutely nothing. What was those ethos? Firstly, we felt that we, differentiated by the colonial government, were not allowed to vote. Only few people were to vote on our behalf, pass laws that were to govern us without our participation, without our inputs. Whatever they agreed, that's what we were going to do, and they follow. So we felt we were being differentiated by that action. Hence, we wanted to establish a principle of one man, one vote, universal suffrage, which speaks to the people, which says people have the right as human beings to decide their tomorrow. So that's what led us to go to war. So to say today with this bill that again seeks that very few people will vote on behalf of the majority, it takes us back even far before the UDI. So it doesn't really intend to address the needs and the aspirations of the liberation struggle. Right? What does it mean? Why this proposal of amending the Constitution today? What is it trying to achieve? In my view, it does not intend to achieve anything except to divert or to deny the people of Zimbabwe to exercise their right to vote. Because we are heading for elections just in less than 2 years, which is in 2 years, which is 2028. So ZANU-PF has no any other reason to skip 2028. So they bring this thing which now moves from politics to sort of academia. It creates an impression that there is a strong debate on whether to amend or not to amend. It becomes both academic and legal. But politically, it's not addressing anything except to say we shall have no election in 2028. Therefore, ZANU-PF will continue ruling up to the time they believe is convenient for them, or as long as it is convenient to them. So it has absolutely nothing with the people. It doesn't seek the opinion of the general public of Zimbabwe. It doesn't seek to address the issues that currently affect the Zimbabwean people, both economically and politically. This bill is not going to bring bread on anybody's table in Zimbabwe. Is not going to address any economic growth in Zimbabwe. Is not going to respond to anything in Zimbabwe. So it is simply ZANU saying we can't win the election in 2028. Then the next thing, what do we want to do? No, let us not go for election. Let us continue as we are. And the members of parliamentaries are beneficiaries of this criminality. They straight away say, yes, we are going ahead. There will be no election in 2028. So how do we address that? We need to mobilize our people, mobilize the region, mobilize the continent, mobilize the international community to put pressure that Zimbabwe must have election in 2028. By having election in 2028, there shall be no bill number 3 or any proposition. Because for now, really, we are chasing the wind. ZANU-PF knows what they want. They know where they want to go. So they will bring all these jargons. The ZANU-PF resolution in 2024 did not propose to the notion that the president will be voted by MPs. The ZANU-PF resolution number 1 did not include the abolition of the gender commission. The ZANU-PF resolution did not propose to abolish or transfer back the voters' roll from the ZEC or Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to the Central Registrar. It did not propose that. So they are just bringing all these things to provoke a debate which is based on nothing, absolutely nothing. So my proposal, therefore, or my observation is that let us concentrate on mobilizing the people to call for election in 2028. Forget about all these side shows. Yes, people have the right to debate about it, but this is not an academic issue. This is not a legal issue. This is a political issue which needs to be addressed politically. So how do we address it politically? Is to mobilize the people of Zimbabwe to reject these proposals and a call for elections. Therefore, our concentrations now stands on two, or are premised on 2 theories. One, if the courts disagree with the proposals, they will be forced to call for a referendum. Are we ready as a nation to challenge ZANU-PF at a referendum? That's the question. So we need to intensify our campaign for a referendum as if we are preparing for elections. If ZANU-PF again, which I know that will be a fact, they will say we have no money to conduct such a big operation or program, so we can't go for referendum. Then let's mobilize for election in 2028. Let's go for election in 2028. The other thing that they might say, okay, after this, then we'll go for referendum. We don't want that. The referendum must be held far before 2027 or mid-2027 if lateness is allowed. But we need to have a referendum. Referendum, they know they will not win. Elections, they know they will not win. Why are they why are they in a hurry about this? It's because their rigging system has ended, has come to an end. That Becky has run out of new tricks. Nevers Mumba, 2023, nailed the last nail on the coffin. So they can never rig elections again. They can't. So how do they skip that? They are coming with these proposals. I urge Zimbabweans to mobilize themselves, prepare for referendum, prepare for election. Never allow ZANU-PF to skip elections. SADC should understand that ZANU-PF wants to set a wrong precedence, and democratic precedence, a precedence that does not respond to the people, that any leader will decide at any time and say, no, I want to extend my term. Then we cannot have a continent of dictatorship. We can't afford that. We can't afford that. As elder people, what is it that we are showing to our young generation? What is it? What example are we giving to our generation? That only the minority will continue to rule over the majority, even if it's black to black. No, we refused to have a minority voting pattern. We refused that. And that had to cost the people's blood. Many millions of Zimbabweans died just for the sake of wanting to have a one-man, one-vote system. So anything, I've consistently said this to many platforms, currently allows Zimbabweans to have a right to vote, exercise their conscience. Allow them to do that. Since independence from 1980, Zimbabweans have never been subjected to a one-man, one-vote. It has always been a coerced system. You don't vote for us, we don't give you food. You don't vote for us, we don't give you munda. You don't vote for us, we are going to suffocate your children from attending school. You don't vote for us, we introduce a law that will detain you without trial. All from 1980, we have had this system of arrest and detain, never appear in court. Disappearance, forced displacement of the citizens. And they want to continue like that. So the extension of Mnangagwa's term, it only tells you that we have not done more displacement. We need to displace more. We have not done more on the extrajudicial killings. We need to do more. We have not done enough to suppress and detain without trial. We need to do more. This extension seeks to achieve that. And I'm saying Zimbabwean people reject that, completely reject that. It doesn't assist anyone, not anyway. So I call upon the SADC countries never to allow Zimbabwe to set a wrong precedence. The laws of Zimbabwe says 5-year per term. It's an election cycle. 5 years, and the last 5 years, when you reach 10 years, go home, allow others to come in. One man, one vote. There's no cohesion to say, no, we want to, the military must come in and remove Mnangagwa and place somebody. That's not democracy that we went to war for. That's not it. ZANU-PF has never known peace. In 1973, when they were removing Chitepo, there was a coup, which was first perpetrated by Robert Mugabe in detention. When he went to attend the 1974 negotiations, they left Ndabaneng Story. They go to Zambia. Where is Ndabaneng Story? No, we have already done away with him. He's no longer our leader. Then the frontline states refused and chased them away. They came back. When they came back with Ndabaneng Story, they used the military to remove him and they placed Mugabe. 1980. Mozambique. To Mozambique. When he gets there, some the guerrillas who were left in Mozambique, they.
I think his network is a challenge to him, but we have heard what is his contribution. Before we get into our final segment, I'm now calling upon our viewers to engage. Before we move into our final segment, let me bring in our viewers across the Champions Network TV, Mbire TV, and NDWG Global TV. There are three ways you can engage, either ask questions to Dr. Zembe direct, or if when Comrade Whitehead comes back, I think you will be able to ask your questions direct to him. So there are three ways you can do that. The first one, you can pose your question in the chat box, in whichever channel you're watching from. We'll be able to put your questions to the panelists. The other option is you can come into the studio, and you can direct your question to whichever panelist is there. I think for the time being, we have got Dr. Zembe in the house. So I think we had someone, I don't know the full name. So I will bring him in so that he can ask his question or he can make his contribution. But whilst he is coming in, I will also bring in some comments from those who are watching us live on the channel. The other option is you can, if you have got WhatsApp, you can phone in, and our panelists will be able to hear your question and respond to you. And the number we are using is that number that is on the screen now. So I will bring in T. I think you need to introduce yourself, or Tenzo. Tenzo, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Welcome to Champions Network TV in collaboration with Bire TV and NDWG Global TV. And you are live now. We have got Dr. Zembe in the house and the Whitehead in the house. If you have got any questions directed to any one of them, you can pose your question now. Comrade Whitehead has just come back. Comrade Whitehead, we are now interacting with our viewers. So Tenzo was here, I think, a while ago, and he was waiting in the back room. So I've given him an opportunity to come in, make a comment, or ask a question either to you or to Dr. Zembe. Over to you, Tenzo.
Okay, thank you so much. Greetings to everyone. My question is directed to both Mr. Whitehead and also Mr. Mr. Zembe. The issue is concerning SADC. Yes, we can try to lob our grievances to SADC. But as we look at SADC presently, or even when it was formed, it has good aims and objectives, but those are on paper. They are aims and objectives. When we look at things in the Southern African region, we see there are wars, there are conflicts, and people are struggling. And the leaders in the SADC, they are failing to solve those problems. So we now citizens, we are saying those bodies are using our tax monies. They are not bringing any solutions. They just look at things. We no longer have any trust, even though we try to lob our problem as Zimbabweans to SADC. We look at the leaders, they are compromised. So they won't help us, those people. We need to stand together as citizens. So I don't know to Mr. Uraya Zembe, who your take there concerning SADC.
I think it was a question directed to both of you, but I think he lastly mentioned Dr. Uraya, but anyone can respond to that. Worry is, can we trust SADC to stand with us? Over to you, Dr.
Chair, can I come in?
Come in, sir.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, the truth is that SADC is a regional body comprising 16 countries. And as a grouping of 16 countries, they have a constitutive act. In other words, they have a constitution and rules and regulations that guide them to have common values, including values on elections. And we saw in 2023 clearly that the SADC appointed observer team of Mumba qualified the elections in Zimbabwe in 2023. And that the Zimbabwean government reacted angrily and even threatening the SADC observer team, and even demeaned Dr. Mumba's personality. Yet the observer team acted on behalf of the SADC regional body. And the principle was violated when somebody acts formally in an impersonal impersonal capacity. You don't attack the individuals. You should relate to the organization itself. But the Mnangagwa government went rapid and violated all norms of decent interaction. It's as if Dr. Mumba was doing his own personal thing as an individual. So the ZANU-PF regime was possessed with the dictatorial demon, to the extent that they even at the same time claimed that they were the principal architect of the formation of SADC, but at the same time, they never respected the SADC's rules regulating elections. So it left Zimbabweans without any benefit, any protection from the SADC regional body. Yet, even if you see the United Nations system recognizes the local bodies, SADC, African Union, and the UN, and that the recognition again has not been able to protect the interests of Zimbabweans, particularly the electoral interest of Zimbabweans, as represented by SADC. So there is evidence that the SADC body has become completely useless regarding the benefit that Zimbabweans, the citizens, were supposed to have. Why? Because the SADC is just a club of governments. So they work like a club, and sort of protecting each other. Despite the fact that SADC qualified the 2023 elections in Zimbabwe, it went on that body to appoint Emerson Mnangagwa as a chairman of the same body for 1 year. So you really, I agree with you, the questioner, that we have to take this matter to citizens, to ourselves, because the SADC is a group of countries, and a group of countries is not an entity. It's not a country. SADC is not like a Zimbabwe. You see, so we are on our own as an entity of SADC. So we have to deal with the situation on the ground. But at the same time, we should continue to demand SADC's action because we are part of that grouping, and we should continue to demand that the SADC must be effective. That's not to say we will expect SADC to rescue ourselves, because we've seen that they have not been able to. We are calling on a new, in fact, SADC pact at the same time to say that the new SADC pact should be effective, like the ECOWAS in the Western Africa, because ECOWAS regional body has teeth when it comes to some of these developments and democratic developments. They have been able to resolve problems in their region because ECOWAS has some teeth to bite the wayward states in terms of governance. So, yes, I do entirely agree with you that hakuna inofurira ivete, and we have seen that SADC is very weak and has not been able to protect us, but we should just take the struggle into our own hands and deal with our own local situation. That is would be my response to the question. Thank you, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zembe. I don't know if Comrade Whitehead wants to add anything to that before we bring in, I think we have got Comrade Richie, who has just come in. He has been waiting in the lobby. Comrade Whitehead, if you have got anything to add to what Dr. Whitehead, Dr. Zembe said.
I totally agree with both speakers. And Dr. Zembe has further explained the duty of the SADC and its inactivity, which we need to press them to do. I'm very much aware of the weaknesses and the complicity of SADC countries under the pretext of protection or safeguarding the gains of independence. I'm very much aware that they use that oftenly. But the issue is the young people in particular. You must change things. We went to war with no SADC. SADC was created to respond. That time it was frontline states, and there were only 3 of them. That was Zambia, Tanzania, and Botswana in Southern Africa. So we went to Lancaster House under extreme pressure that was exacted by these 3 frontline states, because their citizens were under threat from the apartheid regime, South Africa, and the rebel regime in Southern Rhodesia. So all these things, I'm very much aware of them. We had to sign the Lancaster House Constitution simply as a compromise. So we were not under war pressure. We're gaining the ground. But because of those things, we ended up getting there. But then we produced independent Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe today is in that club, in that grouping, is a part of SADC. So we cannot run away from that. We still need to. But the bottom line is that SADC can only do so far, not that far. The rest is ours as Zimbabweans. We Zimbabweans, we need to mobilize our people, particularly the young people, because this is your tomorrow. This is your future. Don't allow your future to be cut short because of scenarios, because of these SADC old people. The record of the war is now over 50 years with the Angola and Mozambique and Zimbabwe 46 years and South Africa with the 40 years. So these are the things that we need to say, you, the young people, you cannot hold on onto something that is 50 years old, that is 40 years old. You try and come together. When I speak about SADC, I've said this consistently and regularly to the young people. Speak to your generation in those countries. Remind them, make them understand what is happening in Zimbabwe might happen to them tomorrow. Even in some countries, it's happening. So that you start a movement that seeks to change. We can't continue. We fought colonialism. We cannot now continue with this neo-colonialism perpetrated by ourselves, by our elite. Very few people who are enjoying the gains of liberation in Southern Africa, very few of them. So it is up to you, the young people, to come on board. We, the elder people, we shall be telling you what happened, what we experienced. Then you write books about it. But writing a book is not enough. Be creative. Participate fully. So this time, this is why I spoke about saying we cannot ignore or allow ZANU-PF to skip 2028, because the purpose of this bill which was only introduced in 2024, is to try and avoid holding elections. Everybody who voted in 2023, knows the MP, the councillor that I voted for, how much has he performed between 2023 and now? So maybe come 2028, I'm not going to vote for him. And then you say he must continue, even if the people who put him in that office have disqualified him. But by decree, you want him to continue. That's not right. That's oppression. So we cannot continue on that. But I totally agree with the previous speaker that SADC is compromised. Yes, Dr. Zembe has already said that we cannot stop knocking at their door. We must continue knocking these things into their senses for two special reasons. The first reason is they are struggling now as we speak with Mozambique, DRC, and a part of Sudan. And they are struggling with the criminality, cross-border crimes, and recorded crimes in their countries. And if they allow these systems to continue, these criminalities will continue. And they will never try, because if Zimbabwe becomes one of them, that means the problems they are faced with in Mozambique and the DRC are going to be double now. So do they really need to take that risk? Are they prepared to receive more refugees, documented and undocumented immigrants in their countries? If they keep quiet, so they should not cry foul. We don't want to experience this xenophobic behavior that we are seeing in South Africa and elsewhere. It is because the situation in Zimbabwe is not conducive for anyone to live in. The people go to other countries and get into South Africa and become a menace. Those who live in South Africa, they were telling me that you go to something like Cape Town or so, you find thousands and thousands of Zimbabweans who sleeps under the bridge. Those unrecorded crimes, they commit crimes that can never be traced. We recently saw in Zimbabwe that somebody was arrested with unregistered firearm, a military firearm for that matter, within the SADC region. We don't know how many of those arms are now circulating in the region. So it's up to SADC to wake up. So that's all I was that's the point I wanted to emphasize, moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zembe and Comrade Whitehead. We have got some viewers there who are making some comments. I think Mbire says is watching us from Lusaka, Zambia. And Enoch says, thank you, gentlemen, for the program. And we also have Timothy. Timothy says, ZANU-PF has taken Zimbabweans for granted. For long, the people's voice, struggles, and aspirations continue to be ignored while decisions are pushed forward without genuine national consensus. And he went on again to say, many now feel that the leadership is hell-bent on ensuring CAP 3 materializes regardless of public concern or the long-term consequences for the country's shame reality. I think what's his name? He left Comrade Richie, he was in here before we gave him an opportunity. He left the stage. I think there's also a comment from Mawani Taiwo. It's high time we should unite as a one nation. That's what he's saying there. I don't know if anyone wants just to make a reference to those comments, especially from Timothy, who is saying ZANU-PF has taken Zimbabweans for granted for a long time, and they are hell bound to make sure the CAP 3 becomes a reality, irrespective of the concerns of the people. Tenzano, you also have got the opportunity to respond to those observations if you can, but I will give our panelists, if anyone wants to either make a comment or anything to those songs before we go to our final segment.
Chair, can I make just a remark? Whitehead, yes, Whitehead made a very important observation there. That when all is said and done, Zimbabweans must demand the holding of an election in 2028. And that demand has to be actioned, whether in 2028 or beyond, depending on the dictatorial acts of Emmerson Mnangagwa and his regime. The demand for elections, in fact, could have come earlier than the present moment, because we have had rigged elections since 1980 to date. And when the National Democratic Working Group was launched 2 years ago, began to consult the citizens of this country, the same demand was made by many citizens who informed the National Democratic Working Group's efforts. Because it is only through a people's democratic election that a nation is rescued from the jaws of a failed regime, from the jaws of a dictatorial regime. The time would not leave upon time to say, when we are choked by the dictatorship, to say, let us allow them until 2028, when people are dying as a result of failure of a regime that has gone rogue, stealing public wealth, ignoring the lives of the people for an election. And this is why I want to concur with the Whitehead, to say that demand is operational and which we must make forthwith as a country, to say elections must be held now to rescue ourselves from this genocide that we have been plunged into by Mnangagwa's failure to reconstruct this governance of this country. Many people thought that since he was there since 1980 in the cabinet, and since he worked with Mugabe for up to about half a century, he may have learned where the ZANU-PF government went wrong. But alas, we are all witnessing that Mnangagwa never got to learn the pitfalls of ZANU-PF, misrule under Robert Mugabe. because he went and continued to fail at a terrific rate to the extent that he has reached rock bottom. So yes, Chairman Ramisha, I do agree with Whitehead that Zimbabweans must resolve to cause an election under their democratic conditions, not under the conditions of a failed regime and its laws. So thank you very much for allowing me to make this remark. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Mija.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to highlight something there. Like what Mr. Uraira is saying, we see that we are to demand the elections in 2028, but this rogue is ZANU-PF. They'll put stones, or they'll put stones in their ears that they will not listen to the voice of the people, even though ED says the voice of the people is the voice of God. We see that they'll bulldoze to go to 2028 and they suspend elections. So what are we to do as citizens? It is a norm that ZANU-PF, what they are doing, they are operating illegally. As we look even behind or previously, we see that the 2023 election was rigged, and he went in as an illegitimate president, even though the courts, they sanitized him. But the issue, ZANU-PF, they do things in that manner for them to continue to misgovern the country. They'll continue to do that. They'll go 2028, no elections held. Because they know that most of these leaders are unelectable. They are not elected. So that's why they are trying to run away from the elections. So we need to be united as citizens of Zimbabwe. Yes, we can demand by speaking, but action needs to be done. So that our elections, when we go to courts, the courts are captured. We look at most of these institutions, which are very pivotal in protection of the rights of people, they are captured. So how are they going to deliver justice and fairness? Because we are under captivity, we are being caged by this Gananda and ZANU-PF and its systems. They are evil systems. That's why they have broad day abductions of people, broad day of torturing of people, broad day even of harassing people. Where are we going? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will allow Whitehead to respond, but before Whitehead responds, I just want to make a comment. I think the people of Zimbabwe, the likes of Dr. Zembe and others, were at this particular juncture in history in the 60s, when the white regime were doing exactly what our black government is doing. And also the courts were in the hands of the whites. In other words, they were not going to get any advantage in the legal system, political system. But they did their part until we got independence in 1980. That's why I think when he speaks about the young people, we need to rise up. Because if I remember, when ZAN was constituted in Highfield, the people who were there were very young. The eldest was 47. The youngest was 26. It was Edgar Tekere. These were the people who became the foundation of the ZAN that we know today. So it was not formed by people who are in their age. So it is up to us until we have got a reason to demand our rights. Sometimes when I listen to Whitehead, he says at their age, they walked on foot to all the way to either Zambia, Mozambique, and you know what they were going through because they had a conviction. Ourselves, I think we are not at a point where we are convicted, that we are convinced that we have to take the bull by its horn. But I may not, without taking much time, I will give Whitehead to respond in the shortest possible, as short as he can, so that we can move on to our next segment.
Thank you, Corporate Chair. Thank you very much. I hear the speaker. Yes, ZANU-PF vachayisa matombo kunzeve. They've never listened to anyone. What we are discussing here, we are calling for a civil disobedience, not a violent one, but a civil disobedience. When I say not a violent one, no arms are required, no looting, no what. But we are saying there are very many forms of resistance. I've said this before. Stay away from anything in Zimbabwe. Stay at your home. Because if you go in the street, they will brutally kill you. Stay at home. Don't board any bus or any kombi or any mshika-shika. Just go there, walk, buy your food to come back, and those who will be selling food, they must also stay home. All the shops, those workers who feel the pain that everyone is feeling, stay home. That's another way of protesting. The second protest is enshrined in the Constitution. You have the right to demonstrate for your freedom. But brutally ZANU as it is, that may not be a good one. And in the diaspora, we intensify our diplomatic offensive vigorously. Explain these things to them, to all the countries of the world. Explain what is happening in Zimbabwe, and that the actions of Zimbabwe, the impact of what is happening in Zimbabwe, in the regional economy. We must be able to explain that. And you raise ZANU-PF being very unlistening. But one thing that they are afraid of is demonstration. They don't like that. This is why they are avoiding elections. ZANU-PF at the moment is at its weakest point that has ever existed in ZANU-PF. So let's capitalize on that. Let's capitalize on that. And these things affect every person in Zimbabwe, black, white, yellow, green, old, young, mid-young. We are affected by the same thing. I've said before, Zimbabwe is a stolen property that needs to be recovered by Zimbabweans. When a child got lost in the village, it is the whole village that goes to look for that child and recover that child. So Zimbabwe is a stolen, is a lost country. We are trying to recover it. Issues of leadership, which some people have been complaining about, mobilize yourselves. A leader will emerge from there. will emerge from there. Let's move with speed. We as Zimbabweans, together, and say our country has been stolen. We are looking for our country. Those who stole our country, we know where they are. Let's march to them and demand that they give us our property. We cannot afford anymore to say, no, what are the generals doing? Yeah, they must come in. We don't want that power anymore. We need a civil government, a government that is composed of the people, that respond, is answerable to the people, not a military government. We have had the military government since 1980. We saw what happened in 2008. We saw, all of us. That was a direct coup by the military to retain power. Now we are saying there is no military that is stronger than the citizens, not anywhere in the world. It is up to the people of Zimbabwe to stand up, particularly the young people. I've said this, that Zimbabwe, the history of Zimbabwe is that Zimbabwe has never been liberated by the old people. Kaguvi and Mbuya Nehanda, they revolted at their earliest age when they were in their 30s. Lopengula did the same, rebelled when he took power from his father at the age of 30 years. Chaga, the same, he took the power at the age of 30. Jesus Christ, he took the power at the age of 30. So it is the young people that must drive the seat. We went to war at the age of 20s. So don't confuse yourselves. These are the things that we need to come together and say no more to military rule, no more to oppression. When we went to war, we were taught that we are going to remove a system of an oppression by a man. We want to liberate ourselves. So no more a one man or no more oppression by another man. So we need a collective government, a government that is by the people, for the people, and nothing else. The constitution that is drafted by the people for themselves. If you look in all the documents during the liberation struggle, including of ZANU themselves, it speaks to that. That the executive, yes, shall be there to run the day-to-day issues of the country, the operations of the country. But the supremacy of power remains with the citizens. So the supreme organ of Zimbabwe is the masses of Zimbabwe, not the Politburo, not the Supreme Court, not the Constitutional Court, but the people themselves. If you read the preamble of the 2013 Constitution, says we Zimbabweans, not the Politburo, not the Parliament, not the Constitutional Court, no, we, the people of Zimbabwe. And I call upon all the young people to understand this message. Let's unite together. Tonotsvaga mwana arasika uyo ari mudondo, tozotanga kutaura namai vacho kana mwana tamuwana. kuti mwana amborasika sei. Asi pari zvino vavario yedu ndeyekuti timhanye tinotsvaga Zimbabwe payakarasikira toitora. Isu sikate sikiso katesa sambeni vahlave Zulu sibambane nini iZimbabwe ichonchiwe asidinge ndapekhona. So for anything else, the motto should be we want to recover our Zimbabwe. And the world must know that. The world must know that. So ndio mashoko angu andingataura zvishoma iwawawo. Chairman, over to you.
Thank you very much. There's been some activity in the chat box. There's Washington there who says yes about CAP 3. We must be united, but I don't know why it takes too long to come out with one way to attack the elephant in the room, which is ZANU-PF. Zimbabweans we are not yet united. My question is, when are we going to? Then he went on to add another. ZANU-PF, they always do without delay. But those who are against CAP 3, nguva yedu inopera pakungoronga singabude zvinotorwadza. Then kwabva kwazoya maronde wawomen 1024. Please, let's unite without condition, both opposition and those in ZANU-PF. No one owns Zimbabwe. We oppose need, not intimidate them with prison or any. Let's learn to forgive and to forgive them. When those are the comments in our chat box. Any response to those ones before we need now to come to our final segment, to our discussion.
Me, I want to highlight this to Mr. Dr. Zembe. The issue of 1980 to the current situation which we are having. During the Mugabe time, Emerson was there, ED was there, and he was in the cabinet, and he was given different positions there. The issue is that Mugabe was being controlled by ED. All those evils which were taking place, ED has hand of those things. So to say, he lost the chance to repair the broken cord with the citizens, because he continued now to fully implement these evil things which he is now exhibiting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those observations. Dr. Zembe, do you want to give a quick response?
Oh, yes, not to the past immediate speaker, but to the point that was raised by the comments. You see, people are looking for an organized opposition to the current constitutional developments. And you know that Zimbabweans fought for a multi-party democracy since 1980. And Zimbabweans defeated ZANU-PF when it got into a merger with PF-ZAP in 1987, conspiring to have a legislated one-party state. And at the 1990 elections, Robert Mugabe wanted permission or a mandate from Zimbabwean electors to institute a one-party legislated state. But Zimbabweans called for a multi-party democracy. The importance is that when you have a ruling party which has other parties competing or contesting or criticizing it, Zimbabweans will have an alternative in the event of failure of the ruling party. You will have parties in opposition that can be elected to run the affairs of the public. And so as we speak right now, all the efforts by Zimbabweans to have organized opposition were busted by the ZANU-PF rule. Let's look at Zimbabwe Unity Movement in 1990, then which translated into the Democratic Party, which began to research on constitutionalism, and then the emergence of the National Constitutional Assembly civic movement, clamoring for a homegrown democratic people-driven constitution, and then that led to the formation of the MDC in 1999, and then the MDC had splinters there, right into MDC Alliance and into Triple C. And all these organized opposition political parties were devoured by ZANU-PF dictatorship. In one way or another, opposition leaders were bribed in some case. When we had the GNU, the members of opposition occupied public offices under the GNU from 2009 to 2013. And so the organized political opposition in Zimbabwe were all caricatured and destroyed by ZANU-PF machinations, using public resources to bribe the opposition, including now the risk that we face is that a lot of members of parliament went into the current parliament through a people's vote opposing ZANU-PF rule. But then through Chawangu machinations, ZANU-PF was able to destroy CCC. That led to Advocate Chamisa's resignation as president, and then it left Zimbabweans without a viable organized opposition to ZANU-PF rule. So at this juncture, Zimbabweans are again trying to establish a mass opposition political party movement to counter ZANU-PF dictatorship. So as we discuss, as we debate, we have had these views in the National Democratic Working Group for the past 2 years, with the citizens actually calling for filling the gap that is there. That is to say, people are clamoring for the establishment of a viable political party movement to enter the political realm and resist ZANU-PF, since it's actually the dictatorship of ZANU-PF is organizational driven, it's political party driven. So Zimbabweans very soon, I'm sure, will come together and establish a mass movement as a political party to actually answer to the people's political call to have ZANU-PF being stopped and also being overthrown in future elections that will be held. So that is the comment I thought I should make. And from my observation and also as a political activist, I needed to inform the panelists and also the viewers and listeners of this debate. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't know if Whitey has got any comments to make, especially pertaining to an issue raised by Tanjo. I think Whitey, we have just lost him. I think we we may move to our final segment, Dr. Zembe. This is now looking at the future outlook of Zimbabwe. Who controls the future of Zimbabwe? So looking ahead, Dr. Zembe, what does Amendment Bill number 3 mean for Zimbabwe's democratic future? What are your views if this bill passes, or if this bill fails? What does it mean for the future of Zimbabwe? Over to you.
Yes, this bill has triggered national discourse about the future of Zimbabwe. We need a scheme of reconstruction in terms of governance philosophy. Zimbabwe has suffered a lot from the time when it was Rhodesia to the post-independence to debt, and that public institutions have had a terrible knock. Where they acted professionally before, particularly after 1980 Declaration of Independence, their actions should have been progressive in terms of professional governance. You know, our structures, public structures, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature were corrupted over the 46-year period, which means that the individuals that were seconded to occupy public positions, either as judicial officers or as civil servants or as political representatives, that is MPs, or as councillors, got to be corrupted with resources that were given on the basis of partisan identities. So you would find that only ZANU-PF members of, ZANU-PF members would then get jobs in all public positions, so that they would hero worship their leadership, political leadership, and that such public leaders never acted professionally to serve citizens of this country equally. This is why you find if you look at the land redistribution that we went into in the early 2000s, again they had partisan linings. People who were given land were largely members of ZANU-PF. People who were given jobs, largely members of ZANU-PF. People who were given assistance during years of starvation, Mukomondera. Again, people were given on the basis of their political card-carrying qualification, and that the chiefs and the sabukus and the councillors in the rural areas gave Mukomondera sustenance on the basis of partisan lines, and that anyone who did not belong to ZANU-PF political party was described as a mandu, an enemy, to be killed, to be denied public service. And all this was a process of corrupting public institutions, of making them ineffective, of actually making them unprofessional. So there is this need for Zimbabweans to create their constitutional republic right from the head itself. That is to say, to found a constitutional democratic republic of Zimbabwe, where the citizens of this country will gather to enact a constitution of their choice, and so that they begin to reconstruct their country. We need to enter that regeneration phase to establish afresh our systems, so that we have functional organs of state based on professionalism, on meritocracy, on really the value to serve this nation, as we once witnessed some dedication by some citizens. As I speak, citizens of my age and older may have witnessed some professionalism in the past, after 1980, and that value is still in the minds of senior citizens who should help the resuscitation of our institutions, so that the young into occupying positions in public office, they would be assisted to know the ropes of governance, and at the same time, the elderly generation putting down the standards that have to be attained. It cannot be done by the new generation because they've never witnessed professional conduct. They've gone to school, yes, but they've never been exposed to locally, to internship, to service organizations professionally, and to act in a manner that is free of corruption. So we would then need also to recall our citizens in the diaspora who have had exposure in systems that acted professionally and ethically more than those who remained behind. Because as you know, those who remained behind have no industry to intern them at all. And all we have seen informal survival activities that have not really taught our young generation how to do it professionally. And I'm sure you have seen even in schools there, in hospitals there, there's a lot of incompetence. There's a lot of action that is unprofessional, because the elderly population has not been able to teach the young ones how to behave professionally at work and how to offer services. Even if you go to the private sector operations, the situation is the same. You see, we have lost it as a nation, but we have capacity to regenerate. And this is what I believe, that we have really to embark on a scheme of reconstruction in terms of governance. And right from the beginning, to have a constitutional framework dictated by the people, an electoral framework dictated by the people, elections that really belong to the people, so that best brains can be elected to run government forthwith into the future. That's all I can state at this stage. It's a wish, and I will remain as an activist to contribute towards the fulfillment of the recreation of our constitutional democratic republic of Zimbabwe. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Tanjo, if you have got any final remarks that you might want to make before I bring in some comments from the chat box, and then we get a final remark from Dr. Zembe.
Okay, thank you. To what Mr. Dr. Zembe is saying, I concur with what he's saying. But now the issue from the moderator, the question was, when this bill passes on, what is its implication, Doctor? That is what the question highlighted. As for you, you were bringing solutions. But now we are saying, when this bill is forced to pass through, we are saying that's it brings disaster to our country, more disaster to our country. We'll be now heading to full-fledged kingdomship or empire rule. So the implication here, we are saying Zimbabwe will be doomed. Zimbabwe will be doomed when this bill passes through. But it's a forced bill, and at the end, it will create too much anarchy in the country. Because when we go back to the issues of empire rules, this is the retrogressive ways, the previous ways of guardianship, as compared to democracy. Because we are saying the constitution must be followed. And when the constitution is followed, all the different states or arms of the government, they'll function independently. And there'll be a balance of checking each other there. We won't have problems in the judicial system. We won't have any problem in the legislative. We won't have any problem in the executive system. The country will run smoothly and will have development. But when we look at present in our country, they talk of development, but there's no development which is taking place in reality. They talk of building that interchange, the trabablas which they talk about. But when we look at that, can we say that's the only development? We need our country to move forward, to have proper development, to progress, not to continue to be going hayward. So we are saying the passing on of Cap 3 is disaster for our lives in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanjo. That's true. And I think one of the reasons for bringing this conversation is to equip Zimbabweans to know what CAP 3 means, so that you can have conversation amongst yourself. Let me just give you a short. I'll start it from in between, where someone was asking someone in the community there to say, do they know CAP 3? And it was disheartening. The conversation wasn't. It was quite disheartening. Tell me if you can hear anything.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah. Zviri right pakuti vanokwanisa pamakore ivo vanokwanisa kuwedzera ngati chiko vanokwanisa kugadzira vakawanda kuvaka zvipatara kuita zvakasiyana siyana munyika zvinoita kuti nyika yedu ibudirire.
Alright, apa vataura zvokuti zvataura zvakanaka kuti vanokwanisa, but handisi kuti ndikuopoza kana ndingotaurawo newe zvangu, just like normal conversation. Ko panonzi pane apfuura, because like tongoti vari kuda kuwedzerwa handiti, but in short tongoti kubva 2017 vagara vangu vangoripo kubva pakabva munhu. Yeah, ndaumobvunza ndakanangana newe iwewe. Handinogara mumhondoro, unogara futi kurwura wakaenda kuchikoro wakapasa wakadii. Beni nzaunzi ini ndakubvunza kuti kubva 2017 yacho newe ndechipi chinhu chaunonyatsonongedzera wani kuti ichi ndakachiita nekuda kwekuti government yange ichitonga zvakadai alright, chawakamboitawo zvako nekuenda kuchikoro kwese kwawakaita.
Ndinochandasindaita ndikutozvitamburirawo zvangu.
Hauna chawatoaita?
Handina chandasindaita kunze kwekuti kwagara kuchikoro simple.
Alright. Hauna chawatwaita zvikunakidza nyaya yako. Alright, iwe hauna chawatwaita. Ko inonzi sorry. Ko ivo vachone vari kutungamirira kubva 2017 ndezvipi iwewe zvinhu zvaunoti zvakakufadza kana zvawakaona zvakanyatsoitika kana chaunonyatso appreciate besides kuakirwa chipatara chekumhondoro? Wezi ndohwanja vanhu vemumhondoro ndochinhu chamunogona kumensheni.
Aiwa ndo chatakaonawo kuti
but vanhu havasi kufa here vekumhondoro nekuti vakawakirwa chipatara?
Vanhu vari kufa because mishonga hakuna.
Saka iwewe wangochitaura kuti saka iwewe ndoda kudzoka kwauri paungochiti zvoni hazviri right kuti vanowana mamwe makore.
Aita kuti ndizvozvo hazvo but nekuona kwatichinzwawo zvatetiona pativi tinenge tiona kuti vari kuvandudza wani kune dzimwe nzvimbo.
Sezvipi iwewe ngatitaure kusaidi kwako kunzvimbo yenyu kwete kuti
Alright, tise aiwa kana tiri kutaura kunzvimbo yedu tinongo hapana sekutongotambura tiriko.
So why is it like iwewe kufara wabvuma kuti aizve?
Right. Handidzoka menge mutizvinzwa. It was a very honest conversation. Kubva munhu anga asingatomboziva kuti iyo cup 3 yacho chimbori chii. Vatotanga kuti vari kuita zvakanaka chete. But I like the line of discussion. How do you see it, Dr. Zembe?
Well, you see, as citizens, she's not informed of what is currently happening, in the sense that she doesn't know. All she knows is they want 2 more additional years to do whatever she had from the propaganda mouthpieces. That is the television, ZBC television, or the radio, or maybe some of the social media platforms. But this is the tragedy of not having an informed nation. Ordinary people, very often, you'll be shocked, Misha, that even at the time that Mugabe was ousted from power, there were people who thought it would be news to come very close to him, because in some areas they had not even seen him live, having ruled this country for 37 years. So, ignorance on the part of citizens, because they will have been denied information happening, you find that this is how this dictatorship has been able to thrive, by actually muzzling the media mouthpieces. We have public media in the country, and it has been hijacked and abused and captured for the purposes, even to this day. If you switch on to ZBC television, you just hear the propaganda cable. We can change it. Propaganda that is ZANU-PF is dishing out to the people of this country, and it is so steeped in historical ignorance, where we had the monopoly of ZBC TV without the social media. Now that we have the social media, that weakness of keeping people in darkness is beginning to be resolved, because there are other alternative ways of reaching out to people. And progressively, I wish if our people could be more and more informed, so that their public leaders may not lie to them, or may not act on their behalf in a manner that is retrogressive, that endangers their interests. So such a pocket of ignorance, you expect that to happen. And sometimes even to areas that are expected to be in the information technological highway in urban areas. You still have people who are gullible or sometimes who may not know exactly what this such a development could mean. This is why we should intensify those who have gone to school and higher education, who understand the implications on society. That's why the informed should take the frontline position or the vanguard position and let the citizens of this country explain to them some of the implications of such retrogressive developments as Constitution Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026. So it's symptomatic of the characteristics of dictatorships. They never become open to citizens so that they lead, so that they can abuse them and misrule them, and right into even their death chambers. Citizens could die without even attributing the blame to public leaders. They may be, attribute that to their own fate or ancestors and so on. And so to these days, we also have the religion as a part of the philosophy to try and actually hoodwink the people. From the religious point of view, we see again some cults that keep people very watawata, and saying that whoever is there in public office should not be questioned, was put there by God. So we have a mixed bag of citizens who often are not informed of the current affairs in terms of the developments that we are talking about. So back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and I think that's why we are having this conversation. I think so that we can equip citizens to go and have this conversation amongst themselves. This is now going to be your final remark, but when you do your final remark, I want you to take into account the comments that are coming in the chat box. There's that one which is coming from Marondewa Omen 11024. He's saying 2 wrongs don't make a right, so we can't use the violence to settle down the disorder that we have. Let's sit down with these elders, teach them unity, and let's negotiate. I don't know whether we are able to negotiate with Zambia. And he then went a question that is directed to you, Dr. Uraya. You are saying the truth, but we need to speed up before ZANU-PF shut down the doors for elections that CAP 3. I think when you were saying that there are some political formations that are in the pipeline, so I think what Washington is trying to say, let's speed up. And then Marondewa woman also says, let's hire renewed former leaders to help us settle all our disputes. Remember, ZANU uses the divide and rule approach. The second approach is impoverishment, so that we depend on donations. And the last comment was just commenting on the lady that was on the voice. And she says that lady is very lazy. She doesn't want to learn. That is from Takiwa Sinaro. So, Dr. Zembe, your final word to viewers and those in authority, those in the progressive voices, and those in the region and the international community, and also taking into account all these comments that has come through our chat box. Over to you, Dr. Zembe.
Thank you, Chairman Misha. Yes, thanks to the contributors by way of questions. Washington Vutuza appealed to us in the Contra movement against the dictatorship of ZANU-PF to move swiftly and have action started to prevent ZANU-PF from implementing this very dangerous experiment in order to rescue the nation. I entirely agree that it is an urgent matter now that ZANU-PF is conspiring to derogate to itself the people's power so that they continue to dictate after having robbed the people of their power through the amendment bill. And I also would also answer the other participant who wrote that ZANU-PF uses divide and rule. That's true. It has done so for the past 46 years. And there was also a remark, directed at that lady who sounded to me to be quite ignorant and young. And there is need, therefore, for advocacy and education right across the board to educate our people, to inform our people, thereby empowering them to act accordingly to defend their rights. Zimbabweans, as we often say, that we are under siege. There's been an insurrection by an elite, some of us, Black Africans, who have occupied public office through the auspices of a political organization called ZANU-PF, and that they have embarked on a scheme, a violent scheme, to rob national resources, to plunder national resources for their own personal, selfish interests. They are using public office to steal public wealth for their own selfish needs, for their children, for their wives, for their associates. Yet the truth is that they have forgotten that any public office should be used to provide empowerment to all citizens of this country. Whether it's a service, whether it's a commodity being produced by, let's say, a public agent or a public institution or a public investment, that public organ has to serve the entire nation, not groups of individuals, in a democratic manner. And therefore, Zimbabweans have to rise to the occasion and continue to be their own liberators. Nyika haitizi, uye nyika vanhu, saka vanhu have to take stock of their lives, take stock of what is happening in the country, carry on with an investigation of what is happening, and we must continue to share ideas and continue to resolve and to make progressive decisions to defend the democratization process. By the way, the whole liberation struggle was aimed at democratizing the governance of Zimbabwe. And that struggle must continue, it must be renewed, it must be intensified by the existing generations. Both the young and the old must embrace and work together. The old have wisdom, the old have experiences, and the new have the energy and also the capacity to prosecute the democratic struggle through the concept of ideas And once ideas are churned out through the processes of the right to think, the right to exercise our intellect in dealing with the problems that we encounter in our lives, the environmental problems, the governance problems, the political problems, we have mental capacity to produce ideas that are shared and implemented. That is the people's power. So we must move to discover the people's power so that we act together in order to defeat the elites, the minority that have occupied public office, thereby creating an impediment which is being introduced through Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026. It's actually an impediment to the democratization process. So we must act to demand an election, a people's election. At the end of the day, we need to have a legitimate government that must take charge of our public life, which with executive authority to govern this country, while we enact our constitutional framework. You know, we can sit around as a nation, craft our interim electoral and constitutional framework just for us to have legitimate elections, because they don't have to wait for months before elections are held. No, we have to produce a government that aims to rescue our lives, to save our people, to reduce the suffering and the deaths that we are witnessing every day. You know, our people are dying both here at home and in the diaspora. And it is terrible when death strikes. You know, you find some members of the family here and some others in a faraway place in the diaspora there, where once death strikes, then it adds the problem of how to even bury our loved ones when they die in far outlying places. You would require a huge amount of money to bring, you know, the dead to be buried at home. I read a sad ex-posting today where, you know, an adult male died in New Zealand as a result of a crash. It must have been some tragedy. And now the family is faced with a $20,000 US bill simply to bring the dead body home to be buried. And really, one wonders where that $20,000 US could be obtained to repatriate the body so that it can be buried here at home. These are the problems that the nation has been thrust into. So the regional bodies like SADC, for us here in the Southern African region, and the continental bodies like the African Union and the world bodies like the UN have to be made aware of our crisis, including, of course, very many countries that we have diplomatic ties with. It is important that the diplomatic relations be also be given notice of what the Zimbabwean situation is like, and that they can, in their own way, also help Zimbabweans to resolve the problems that face us. The intrusion into our society by the CAP 23, like I've indicated, whether it's forced on us or not, I think the die is cast. The Zimbabweans will continue to embark on the democratization process in order to overcome the whole problems that have been created by ZANU-PF failure to govern our country and to develop our country. for the past 46 years. So thank you very much, Chair, for giving me this opportunity to pass my final remarks today in this discussion, in this debate.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zembe, and I thank you and the Comrade Whitehead and Tanjo in the studio, and those who have been passing comments in the comment section. And there was some clear outlines tonight, and that amendment bill is not just a legal issue. It is a defining moment in terms of politics in Zimbabwe, and I think Comrade Whitehead and Dr. Zembe clearly indicated that the ball is in our hands as Zimbabweans, particularly the young, that we need to shape our future. As always, Comrade Whitehead always says that we are in our afternoon of our life, but you young people are still in your morning. So if this bill passes, you face with a team tomorrow. It also raises fundamental questions about power, accountability, and the future direction of a nation like Zimbabwe. And this debate continues. As this debate continues, one question remains. Is this bill seeking to reform, or it is seeking to redefinition of Zimbabwean democracy? From all of us here at Champion Network TV, broadcasting on Mbire and NWG Global TV, I will say, stay informed, stay engaged. Let this conversation continue in your private spaces. Interrogate the things that has been talked about here. If you have any questions, come back to the chat box, put your question in the chat box. We will be able to answer it in our future broadcast. And so I say to everyone who is watching us, I thank you, and I say good night. Morara Zakanaka.
Thank you for watching Champions Network TV. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you get the ding 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 every time we do post our videos.